sit down first. Okay, hello everybody, and welcome to this new Pet Farms podcast. It's called Peculiar Prattling. I'm the host of this podcast, I guess.
I'm co-host JJ.
And Pet Farms, I guess, all together. This is JJ. He just said his name, but I'll reintroduce him. We've been the main faces of Pet Farms for years now. And I mentioned that in the last video that I made for this, that is going up as we're recording this.
Yep.
And it's been years of craziness, but we finally got back into, me and JJ are like the creative minds behind Pet Farms, I guess. And we do a lot of the like creative stuff that has to do with our D&D campaigns and Star Wars and all that.
Spitballing, find ways to time together.
Yeah, we've kind of made like our own MCU with just our D&D stuff, which is kind of cool. But that's because of the two of us just sitting talking about stuff like this. So you're gonna get to see a little bit of that in this podcast and just learn to play D&D in general. Because
now I'll keep wanting to call our campaign the DCU, the PCU. That's it.
The PCU.
Yeah, Pet Farms Universe.
Oh, okay. Where to start? To be like completely basic down to the T, Dungeons and Dragons is a tabletop role-playing game where you basically use your imagination to do whatever you want to do.
Yeah, but some of the people I've played with, it seems like they're just afraid to be creative. If you notice that?
Yeah, some of the people we've played with in Pet Farms that way.
Yeah, like I'm doing wrong. There's a thin line. Like, for example, that website, Homebrew.
Yeah.
The Homebrew races. Us as DM, we don't mind that, but odds are you're going to do the homework yourself.
It really depends on what it is, because like
for example, we don't mind you being some kind of weird alien race, but we do mind if you're like a demigod or something like that.
With Star Wars, I made up a character, and he'll show up.
Yeah.
He'll show up, but he's the weirdest freaking character I've ever made. And I already have a voice for it and everything.
You get that means? I'm the next person who has to make a weird character.
Yeah, it's weird, and he's got a really funny name, but that's for the future.
Yeah,
we'll get back into D&D and stuff real soon. We've got to make sure Tanner's comfortable coming back and playing.
Yeah,
because me and JJ can subside all that for a while. But we're down to 3 players now, so 2 players in the DM. That's what we made it
we
down
can
to.
do it, but it'd be more fun with like at least one other character.
Oh, those move.
Yeah.
I just thought that would look cool right there. See it. There we go. Now you can see it. Anyway, the basic premise of Dungeons and Dragons is just have fun.
Yeah.
Use your imagination. And I don't know that I have a character sheet here to look up. But
while he's doing that, I will say one thing. I cannot fathom this. This can be a good thing and a bad thing. Like, for example, if the DM's trying to focus, don't just randomly show like, hey, look at that.
Yeah, we've had those problems before, and like we still get it every now and then. We're both guilty of it too, though.
Yes,
and I'll point that out. We've both been guilty of it.
There's one thing that is acceptable, but let's say you're playing with. I've done this, but over in I used to go play D&D in Dalton. Anyway, I was playing with these 2 people who acted like my opinion didn't matter, and I was like, "Hey, I got an idea. Let us spitball some of the ideas. Just go from there." I'm like, okay, and I'd randomly text something out, show it to my DM, like, "Hey, with this one."
See, the advantage to having your phone at the table with D&D is now that D&D Beyond is a thing. You can use it you can use your phone as a character sheet that you won't lose. That is a thing.
Like, for example, I have D&D apps right here.
I actually have a character that I have built all on my phone, and I don't have it written out on paper.
Yeah, me, I have like 5 apps. D&D,
But
that's 4.
you can kind of see this from that distance. But this is what a normal Dungeons and Dragons character sheet looks like. I actually have spells. This is a spell list because this character is a spellcaster.
I did notice that.
This is my Warforged sorcerer.
I did notice one thing. I looked up character sheets here the other day, and there actually are revamped character sheets.
Yeah, they've redone a lot of the stuff.
Yeah,
for,
I think after
they re-released a couple of the books too because they wanted to take out some of the racism things from older books.
Yeah, I will say this: there's a thin line right there, and somehow I managed not to cross that line.
Exactly. Like there's that can happen in the game, and it sometimes it's fine. But
like for example,
when you go too far is when it's
like for example, Tanner as a dwarf when he fell, and I said that one like wow, you fell, it didn't fall far, did you, dwarf?
And
that's that thin line.
In our original campaign we played, one of the characters kept calling me Knife Ears, like one of the NPCs.
Yeah,
because I was a half elf, and I was kind of okay with it. Like as a character, I was like very like hesitant about it, but like. As a person, that wasn't something that I felt like could be taken for like a real race or anything. Yeah. So it didn't bother me too much. If it did, I would have made sure that I said something.
Yeah.
But we try not to do stuff like that.
Another example.
Because we're recording it, we're streaming it out to the internet, so we try not to make those references or comments.
Not take it too far.
We don't want to take things too far to where we alienate audience members and stuff. But basically, this is your lifeline. This is where you get all of your information for your character. This is how you basically this is your character. This is your character's life right here.
I ran into a bunch of new players that's accidentally done this. I cannot fathom this. Do not use a pen.
Oh God!
And you know what I'm talking about.
They do have erasable pens. That is a thing. You can use those. But
ain't that creative.
But basically, you want to write this on your character sheet when you make your own character. You want to make it where you can read it.
And erase some of the stuff.
Yeah, you want to be able to erase it. The spellcasters, I will say, are some of the harder characters to work. And even as an experienced D&D player, I still have trouble with it sometimes. And
I'm probably one of the only ones that have a decent experience with it.
Yes, because you've played it for years, though.
Yeah.
But
that make me the veteran in the group?
Probably. I guess we all are, technically, all three of us.
At this point now.
Yeah. But one of them, or a couple classes we can recommend for beginners, I would say Fighter. Maybe Barbarian would be a good one.
Say the dwarf is a barbarian. Looks like one.
I mean, we've known a few. I don't know. Do you have any specific recommendations other than those two?
I want to say Paladin because depending on how you build your Paladin, it can be both a healer and a powerhouse. And recent
I guess a Paladin would be a good way to play a spellcaster without fully playing a spellcaster.
Another one is a cleric
because you don't have to worry about like sorcery points and stuff. You just worry about how many spell counters you have. I think this dude's a fighter too, but
I'm just curious if anyone's a cleric.
Don't know.
I want to say, oh,
that's a rogue. Yeah, he's got a dagger.
I'm trying to be well. Just for the sake of it, let's use this bad guy.
Rogues are kind of easy to play too, but I wouldn't recommend it for a beginner player because a lot of times, even when I was playing a rogue for 4 years almost,
I will say I
still forgot every session to check for traps.
Yeah,
it's like one of the basic things.
Hey, my characters would do check for traps.
Well, it's still possible for you to use different class attributes as other classes. That just makes it a little bit harder. Like sometimes
basically,
you'll get
if you want to tip a toe in magic, being a magic caster, Paladin's your best bet.
He's not wrong. That is a good idea. And
start off as a Paladin, and just work from there.
Even a cleric might be a little okay, but the problem there is you start getting into the sorcery points. You start getting into the different class things. and you can multi-class, so you can do all that. So it doesn't make it that hard. So like multi-classing makes it easier when you get higher leveled and you want to try something different.
Roughly level 5.
Usually, yeah.
Gray area. Again,
it depends on the
area.
DM's recommendations, but usually
I will say this:
most of us are like level 5.
Yeah, the idea of a paladin barber might be a little OP. Again, depending on your DM, that'd be okay.
I mean, I think the most overpowered one I've heard of was something to do with it was a monk multi-class with like a cleric or something.
That sounds about right.
It was something like that because it was like a monk that could use different powers to go along with what they were doing. Anyway, your basic things you need to start out with D&D is your character sheet, maybe a player's handbook, most likely a player's handbook, because
unless you have an app.
Yeah, unless you're using that.
Yeah.
And obviously your dice.
It don't matter where you get them.
No, because I mean we have a stockpile because we've been playing for years, but
I got that at GameStop.
JJ's got probably 6 or 7 sets.
8.
I've got about that many sets. Tanner actually has like 3, I think.
How many has he lost? I
actually have one of them right there. He did lose one of the dice, and I can't figure out which one it is. But anyway, that's like your basic stuff. Is you as a player, you just need your character sheet, your dice, and a notepad would be preferred for most DMs. I mean, we started taking notes pretty late in the game, but a lot of us do it. Even I do it when I'm DMing, so that I know like what's happening. I remember
points, really.
Yeah, I remember like key things in that campaign. I use it to track initiative. I do all kinds of stuff like that with it. It's kind of nice to have something like that.
Yeah.
And we can do another video about DMing. Yeah. We'll probably do a different one.
Right now we're just working on characters.
Yeah, like your basic character stuff. Yeah. And like there's 2 ways that I know like regularly to roll your stats for your characters. There is the basic.
I can think of 2 main ones. Yeah, the basic, the D6.
Yeah.
Which depending on who's DMing, some people will allow it, some won't. Let's say
it's usually 3 or 4 D6.
It's 46.
Yeah.
Then you drop the lowest one.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Anyway,
for each stat.
Some people depending on who's DMing again. There's that thin line.
We use D20s for ours.
Yeah,
because it was just easier.
In some cases, some would allow you to roll 46s and keep all 4 dice on 3 of the stats.
Yeah, it depends on the number on the dice.
Yes, like let's say if you have 66 6s.
Because like for
anything over 20, no.
We usually don't go past, I think,
18.
It was like 18, 19. Yeah. Something like that. But that's because you don't want an OP character straight from the start.
Yeah.
I actually, when I made this character specifically, I lowered stats because I rolled really high.
Yeah. And another way you can roll is like a D20 as you just roll it. Whatever it lands on, that's what you use. That's 19.
Yeah, like I'll roll the D20. There's 6 stats, basically. So I rolled 6 times, and I took those, and I put them where I wanted to put them for my character. So, like...
Something I've done is mix both methods. Let's say if I use a D20 at first, and I keep getting high rolls.
Yeah.
Let's say on the 3rd one, if I get enough... 4. Not like that, but... Let's say if I keep getting high rolls. Like, if I do that, then I'll switch back over to 44s and do that. Drop the lowest one.
That kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
But usually,
some people...
our group just uses D20s. Because it's easier, it's faster, it's...
Something else we do...
It's much more simple to understand.
Something else we do, which I'm sure no one else does, is when you roll for your money, you use the... In some campaigns... They use that money to buy your resources to start off with. Something we do because money's sort of in D&D.
Yeah. We just kind of let you have whatever you want. or
No,
whatever,
you-
like
you-
basic equipment.
You get your basic equipment and the money.
Yeah, that's how we've done it with every campaign we've
Yeah.
done. Actually, legitimately every campaign except the first one. I think we just got the equipment. I don't think we had any money to begin with. Our original campaign. That was a different DM though.
Yeah.
It was a good campaign, but it was very long and very arduous. That's a word.
Another thing about characters is something we like. Well, I don't know about you, but I like personally is when you get into character.
Oh yeah,
Treat the character like a movie role,
I've given you inspiration multiple times for stuff like that, but
oh yeah,
it's like
for example, oh, I think we should go ahead and explain inspiration.
That's probably
yeah, because we've had our issues here frequently. Sometimes we just forget.
Since I mentioned it, it might as well be explained.
Yeah. Like, for example, my first D&D character I ever played was a paladin. That's part of the reason I recommend it.
Yeah.
And now and let's say you don't want to be a good issues paladin. There's a vengeful paladin. That's beside the point. I played him as like I was Captain America. You know, a lawful good and stuff like that. And I'm trying to remember what happened specifically. Anyway, our characters stopped to get food and stuff like that, and everybody else just up and left. And I kept trying to. Is that one group that kept interrupting me, not listening?
Oh yeah, your original group.
Yeah, over in Dalton.
Yeah.
And I was so in character. They said, "Oh, we're just going to go get our stuff," and I was sitting there. And they pick up their stuff. And they're like, okay, you're last. I was like, okay. After I caught up with you guys, they're like, wait, where were you? I said, I was back there helping the waitress clean up our food. I was that kind of goody two shoes character.
See,
but believe it or not, I didn't start off as my ridiculous character.
Usually, the way inspiration works is stuff like that is usually rewarded by the dungeon master.
For example,
with an extra D20. So you can use that on. Yeah. I think it's attack rolls, and
just about any one of your
skill rolls. It's usually every roll, but some people only use them for specific rolls, and some DMs only allow them for certain stuff. But we usually any roll you roll with a D20 will allow it.
Yeah,
depending on like circumstances. Sometimes I'll recommend not using it if it's something super not super serious.
For example, I would not waste it on a perception check.
It depends on the situation, though.
Yeah. Like, if the DM starts sweating or cocks his head to the side, you'll notice those little tails.
See, JJ is a whole different type of DM than I am, though. Because you're a lot more like, what happens, happens. And usually I'm a little more like, you sure? I'm very guilty of that.
Depends on every one of these situations depends on the DM.
It depends on it also depends on what's happening in your campaign too, because you've done it, but not as often as I do. Because sometimes I'll be like, are you sure you want to do that?
Yeah.
But it legitimately depends on who's running your game.
Yeah.
And so does the inspiration.
Also,
I usually award it in circumstances like he was describing, where it's like you role play really well.
We have forgotten to do that.
Yeah.
Like, for example, we probably would have accumulated, but don't get me wrong, you can't carry them between sessions, I don't think. You can, depending on the DM.
I was going to say, I have.
Yeah.
In the Rick and Morty campaign I did.
Yeah.
Because one of you used it in the last session, I think.
Yeah.
But it was one that you had gotten earlier on. But it's literally a DM to DM thing.
Yeah.
But we're going to try and touch on stuff that's basic, that most DMs recommend. Because we've both played with, we've had a lot of people in and out of the Pet Farms campaigns. We've had, or JJ's played with other groups and stuff, and that Pet Farms cast was a revolving door for a while. So, and some of them were DMs before.
In a way, it was also like a flip flop.
It depends,
Everyone has their good sessions. Everyone has their bad sessions. There's a reason we rebooted my Dragon campaign. It got bad.
It was a little weird.
Yeah, especially when we had to potty train somebody.
We had a problematic character in that one. And that same person created a problematic character for a different campaign, but we won't touch on that right now.
Yeah, it's a sore subject for me.
Yeah, JJ's still a little butthurt. But this book right here in the middle would be your player's handbook. That is a lot of people's guidelines for everything.
Yeah, those I would recommend, but the DM's handbook.
That is a pretty good one to have.
It's a good one.
I don't own one, but
no, it's a good one, but it's not really important.
Yeah, the DM handbook is less important than that one.
Their guidelines, the more guidelines than rules.
This one helps you make your character, helps you decide what classes you want to do. Like, it literally writes everything out for you. And again, they've updated the player's handbook recently, so it's actually got newer stuff in it. It's got more character classes, I think. I'm pretty sure it's like fully updated. This one's
like, for example,
this one's from like 2017.
Yeah, around that time, like maybe a month, maybe a year later, they released add-on books.
Yeah, they started doing a lot of that.
For example, Adventures in the Storm Coast. That had expansion characters in it.
Yeah, there's actually quite a few more classes other than what we've played now, because they've added extra stuff. The Critical Role classes now count as real D&D classes. There's like more and more books. There's different, like, you could be one of 12 different kinds of spellcasters now because there's so many like subclasses added to everything. So like,
not including the homebrew classes that are allowed.
Yeah, because some people allow homebrew stuff, which is homebrew is basically something you've made yourself or that you found on the internet that's not specifically made by Wizards of the West Coast or that kind of thing. If it's not like D&D Beyond or that kind of thing. And even a lot of D&D Beyond stuff is still homebrew because it's not canon to the D&D stuff, but it's still like it's a legitimate source for D&D information. Because I think Critical Role uses D&D Beyond for a lot of their stuff, but I don't think we do. Like we've ever used.
I think I did briefly.
Actually, I take that back. I did to create my subclass for my character in our original campaign. I used it for that because it was a Critical Role thing, and it was before they released their books and stuff that went with the actual D&D stuff. But we have a lot of experience with Dungeons and Dragons, so we wanted to kind of share our knowledge, kind of throw it out there, and maybe tell a few experiences from it, that kind of thing. As a DM, I really enjoy DMing. I've gotten pretty good at it recently because I got thrown into it randomly. Yeah. But I think that last session
I did notice one thing with my Dragon campaign. It's meant for a bigger group.
It really is, yeah. So some of them you can do with bare minimum and some of them you can't. Like this one, the Descent into Avernus, is actually pretty easy with any amount of characters.
Storm King's Thunder is the same way.
Because, like, you get, like, we have an NPC going around with us, but you can literally just add to the group or you don't have to. It's kind of weird because the book lets you decide things like that. And we'll switch over to a little bit of DM stuff here for a second. And basically, the book gives you a guideline of how the story needs to go most of the time. And
of course, there's those little bitty.
This one right here doesn't handhold, by the way. This Descent into Avernus is one of those that you need to have a group that knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
The only reason we've been able to play it is because we played for so long.
Yeah. Like, for example,
because a good bit of the last session we did was completely off the top of my head. And it worked out pretty well. But.
In a way, the Order of the Dragon Queen is like that. But one that is a decent starter by what I've read, because it actually comes with a little chart and all that.
Yeah.
Storm King's Thunder.
Probably, yeah.
It's also you can also use it with a small group, like 2.
They also have the starter sets, which would be a good place to start, because we played 2 of them, actually.
Yeah.
We played the Dungeons and Dragons Rick and Morty crossover, which was actually one of the most fun campaigns we've done so far. It was really fun. It was wacky.
I've played an interesting thing. Well, they're halfway through. I actually did my homework and I actually acted like her.
Yeah. I think you actually like went through and rewatched Rick and Morty during that, or watched it for the first. I don't remember.
I knew enough about it to know how the character went, how I was interacting with.
He legitimately went and caught up with the show at the time.
Yeah, the main ones I focused on at that moment when we
had a pretty good Morty. I will admit that he did pretty good with the Morty, and
his voice did crack.
And Tanner played a pretty good Meatface. Because that character is not in the show or anything.
I will say this.
So he played him the way he wanted to play him.
Yeah, I will say this. We kept forgetting he was not a barbarian, but he should have.
Yeah, that character really should have been.
We just let it slide.
Yeah.
Like screw it. He's a barbarian.
All of us agreed with that because it was just stupid.
I mean,
I think I even let him use a rage one time. And I was like, wait a second.
We just, screw it.
I was like, whatever. I don't care. Anyway, the starter set's a really good way to start because they give you 4 pre-made characters. Or 5.
In some cases, 6.
I think it's 5, actually.
It depends on the
It depends on the set, but I think it's usually 5. And
I got one the other day, it has 6.
I don't know which one that would be, but I think the Waterdeep Heist had 6. But the Rick and Morty one had 5, and it was the main family and an extra character called Meatface.
Yeah,
he was a weird one, but then the other starter set we played was a Star Wars tabletop RPG, and it was. It was 4 characters. I
made an interesting droid. I love that. Again, this is an example of being in character. Everybody got so mad when I opened the airlock. Like, you can't do that. We're a Jedi. I'm like, droid.
That one's pretty fun to play too, but it's a whole different system. It's not D20 based.
It's D&D.
Very strange.
It's basically D&D with extra steps.
It kind of is, but it's very much harder than D&D. 5e is probably the easiest one to play.
Which something we've talked about is
D&D.
Turning it into.
I've actually worked on it, and I think I've got it completely figured out to this point. I think I'm only going to use their dice for combat.
Yeah.
And outside of combat, we'll use a D20 system.
Yeah, because we finally figured it out.
Because we know how to work it, so we're still going to use it.
We know how to use it in battle, just not out of it.
Yeah, and I'll just use a D20 system when we're just like investigating stuff and that kind of thing. But the basic premise of D&D with the dice is your rolls are determined by the D20, which is a 20-sided die, which you won't be able to see this from there, but we've got quite a few of them. This is the biggest one in the set. But
actually, that miss.
You use your well, yeah. But actually, this will help with the explanation. This is a 20-sided die.
Which reminds me, I need to look for the other 6.
A dodecahedron, I think is what it's called.
Yeah.
But basically, when you roll, it lands on whatever it lands on, and depending on the number, usually 11 and higher is a good roll. Depending on what you're difficulty. Doing.
Like if it's like a really dumb character, you probably just have to be to 5. But if it's like a very important NPC, you have to be a nat 20 just to persuade them.
It depends. It really depends on what you're doing.
Yeah, it depends on the character.
And like we said about the inspiration earlier, with the inspiration you take, and some people it depends on it depends on the DM, I guess. But sometimes if we're in a rush, we'll use 2 at the same time. We'll just throw them. Whichever one's the higher one, you go with it.
We try to get as much done as we can.
That's because we get really sidetracked really quickly.
Yeah, that's why we 2 dice.
But most of the time, it's like you roll, and if you want to use the inspiration die, you roll again.
I still remember the first time I used a fireball. 8 d6s.
And with the combat, that's where all the other die come in.
Yeah.
Because you don't use anything else for...
Actually, with an exception, D100. That mainly...
Well, that's a percentile dice. Yeah. So
not just that, the main person that probably would use that, the only situation that probably would use that is
sorcerer, probably.
Sorcerer or chaos magic.
Yeah, wild magic, chaos magic, that kind of thing.
Yeah. It's all random.
With some stuff, like, it depends on your weapon. Most of the time, a D6 is your main weapon one.
Let's say a dagger.
if you're a barbarian, I think it's a 12.
Yeah. Let's say it's a dagger, like D4.
Yeah, D4 would be a dagger. D6 would be your normal weapons. Right here on my main page, I actually have my fist does D6 damage as this character, but I think it's because of his Warforged thing, because he's a bigger one. But his dagger does a D4, his fist does a D6 for some reason. His quarterstaff does a D6, and it also says D8. I guess that's two-handing it. And that's a thing too with a lot of the weapons. If you two-hand it, you upgrade the dice to the next size. So if you're using a D8, you go to D10, or usually D12, I think. If you're two-handed, I think it's usually 12. But that's the basic way that works. And with combat, it's a whole different thing.
Yeah.
Because usually you're just rolling a d20. You're just rolling your 20-sided die.
Yeah, that's the main one you're going to use.
For most of the skills on your character sheet, on this side, let's say you're doing a perception roll, you roll a d20. You do an investigation, that's a d20. Your initiative is a d20. That's when you go into a fight. And you have to pre-roll for everything. And even that depends on how you entered the fight. If you're entering that fight with, like, if you're sneaking up on something, sometimes you get advantage for your initiative.
Yeah.
Depending on the DM. Sometimes they'll just let you go with, like, a higher roll. I don't know. It depends. But if you're the one getting attacked, usually it's the opposite. You get disadvantage, and you go with your lower roll of 2 rolls, and then
what? I saw a bird.
That reminds me, I turned on my phone.
I was like, oh yeah.
I
Anyway,
think in my case, it'd be the theme main boss battle music from Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah, and this is just going up on YouTube and a podcasting thing, so it's not like a super huge thing. And with Dragon Ball Abridged, they get taken down more than we would, so. But going back to the combat thing, let's say you happen to get a sneak attack on a group of people, and you go to roll your initiative. Every character that's in that instance has to roll, and that would be like your monsters and your player characters. So any monsters, say you've got 5 people you're fighting against, those 5 people have to have their own initiative roll, or sometimes people group them together depending on how many people it is.
Let's say a big gang battle.
Because we fought in one of our campaigns like 30 soldiers. And I think it was this one with like 4 people. And I just I gave the groups of people 1 roll.
Like groups of 5.
I think I was going with groups of 4 in that one, but it really depends on how you want to do it.
It depends on how many bad guys you have.
Yeah, because you try to round it out as much as possible.
Yeah.
But the way that works is you roll your initiative, you take your turns based on the way the rolls work.
Again, the main reason we did that because we were short on time.
Yeah, it's a time saving thing because we stream it.
A lazy man will find an easy way to do anything.
So we figured out ways to shorten things. We've kind of brushed through multiple battles in D&D before, and we're kind of getting good at it. Just rushing through stuff. But I think the biggest takeaway here is the basic stuff for D&D has been laid out before you. I think that's a good first video for this.
Yeah.
I don't know what we would do with another one.
I don't.
I could just record a little longer and we just split it up.
Yeah.
But with the more experienced campaigns, it's a little harder sometimes because like we got into a point in our first campaign where we were beating things way too easy, and our DM at the time was like, "I'm gonna step things up for you guys because this is ridiculous."
I mean, don't get me wrong. Some campaigns are mainly centered around story.
Yeah,
there is that one exception. But if it's let's say if it's a thicker book, a book about that big, it's mainly centered around battles like Dragon Campaign.
Imagine a story book that's like this thick. That was our first campaign.
Yeah. Nothing was written down in books. Everything was...
It was actually really good because it would make a really good animated series because it was just like so random and everything was out of his head. It was it was actually very well made for what it was. And
when he listened to people.
Yeah, when he took our advice about our characters and stuff, it was pretty awesome. And usually if somebody voiced their opinion about their specific character, I would go in and I would like sneak that into his thing.
Also, there's this thing, we ran into it more than once, character rivalries. Just because two characters are bickering does not mean they have an actual feud with each other.
We did actually infight a couple times in that original campaign.
For example, me and Tanner.
Yeah.
We've never actually fought. We've never had real arguments.
I think in the Star Wars campaign there was almost a couple of infights because of the way the characters were.
Yeah.
But
that actually I don't think there was never any between me and Tanner though. It's always
I don't know.
Me and you've never actually argued. We straight up argued. We just talked about it.
No, I did threaten your character one time though.
Yeah. That's the one. But again, that's not really an argument.
Like my character kind of just put his foot down and was like, "This is what we're doing." But that was when we were going to rescue Tanner's character, the original campaign. Because there was two things we were going to do, and then I was like, "We need to go do this first." And you were like, "Well, yes, I guess I'm outnumbered."
Yeah.
But that kind of stuff most DMs don't like.
Yeah.
With our group, it makes it kind of funny.
Yeah.
It's good for content, and it's good for the stream.
Like, okay, we need to stick around. Now that one character's like, usually Tanner. It's like, I'm gonna kill.
Yeah, because the way that it normally works.
Diversity. That's it. That's what we were thinking.
All right, everybody. That's it for episode 3. Thank you for watching or listening or whatever you're doing. If you're watching it on YouTube, thank you for that. If you're listening on Spotify or whatever, thank you so much. And remember, you can support the page by sorry, I ate some pizza between now and when we actually recorded. And I'm lactose intolerant, so it's kind of... But, thank you for watching. If you want to support us, go to patreon.com/petfarms, and you can donate whatever level of donation you want to go ahead and do. And I just wanted to make sure that we did an outro, so thank you for watching Peculiar Prattling, episode 3. So, some of these are going to be a little longer because we actually sat and recorded for like 3.5 hours. So I'm gonna have some abnormally long videos. There's probably gonna be about 4 made from this session, or more, because they're 30 minutes a piece, 3 hours. You got about 6 or so episodes. If I was cutting them at 30 minutes like I was originally going to, but I'll let you guys wait until the next episode to hear the rest of it, and I'll go from there. Thank you for watching. See you guys in the next episode of Peculiar Prattling. I'm Steven. Bye-bye.